Star Wars: The Old Republic is a tab-target MMORPG based in the iconic Star Wars universe in the time of the Old Republic. Fans of the Star Wars extended video game legendarium will recognize SWTOR as the newest iteration of the Knights of the Old Republic game series, with the Jedi Knight storyline acting as a spiritual successor to both the KOTOR 1 and 2 storylines. The twist in KOTOR 1 hit me harder than when I found out that Avril Lavigne has been dead since 2003 and replaced with her own body double, so we've got some pretty high expectations for the story in this MMO. SWTOR features 8 unique classes that span the typical fare of Star Wars categories such as Jedi, Sith, Troopers, Bounty Hunters, and more. These classes each offer variations of typical MMORPG gameplay and combat roles like DPS, healers, and tanking, but the true uniqueness of the classes comes from the deservedly legendary stories that go along with each of the classes. However, SWTOR is definitely an older MMO, with its base game having been released well over 10 years ago. With so many newer MMOs with newer systems and higher graphical fidelity having come out since then, the question is, does SWTOR hold up to the pressure of a new decade? Let's find out. Everyone, I want to welcome you to State of the MMORPG. My name is President Brightlife. This is my fancy presidential suit. I am the president of MMO Erica, or America for short. Back to back, gonna feed World War champs. This freaking country, man. Hoo-ah, baby. And I want to welcome you to this series where we take a look at some of our favorite MMORPGs, give you some first impressions in the year of our Lord, some pros and cons to go along with it, and let you know if this is the year when you should jump into this MMO. Friends, if at any point in this presidential video you believe that I have earned your vote, please do so by liking the video with that little button down below. It helps me be seen by more MMO lovers out there. If you love the video or this concept, we do tend to do this for a lot of different other MMOs as well. Be sure to hit that subscribe button while you're down there. But friends, enough pandering for your wonderful and very important like button and subscribe button votes. Today we are journeying to a galaxy far, far away. Let's get plugged into it. Alright, so booting up this game, and of course, first impressions, because I've obviously never, ever played this game before. Okay, I admit it, it's not my first time playing SWTOR, and I'm not ashamed of it. This game is awesome, the storylines are just amazing, and I am a massive Star Wars nerd. Just look at my first Facebook picture, please. Yes, that is me in all my glory at 13 years old. Now, thankfully, all that changed because I am, of course, the peak of male attractiveness now in my 30s. But in a way, this does offer a first impressions look because I've actually never played through the Bounty Hunter storyline before, so let's hop right into this. Alright, so if you haven't played SWTOR in the last few years, it's actually updated its character creator to look and operate in a much more accessible way, which is a huge win for the SWTOR crew fan base. For one, there's a visual change associated here, and I love these visual changes. They look a lot more modern, they feel better, but the more significant change is the delineation between origin story and play style. Here's how it works. Previously, if you chose the Sith Warrior, you played a Sith Warrior, both in story and class gameplay. Now, what SWTOR understands is how great its storytelling is, so they allow you now to choose your starting story and gameplay style separately. For instance, I can actually play through the Sith Warrior story while wielding the powers of a Jedi Consular. This is limited to 2 categories, the melee or lightsaber classes or the ranged or blaster classes respectively, but still, this is a really nice touch, and I think it does a great job of exemplifying SWTOR's biggest strength, which is its storytelling. Now, we're going to talk about the storytelling soon, I promise. Calm down, SWTOR diehards. I know that's what you're looking forward to, but let's get there in just a moment. First, let's walk through this wonderful character creator. Now, first of all, I absolutely love these new little character intros. This is very immersive, introduces you to the class really well. Really well done, BioWare, now turned Broadsword squad over there. Now, it is worth saying that for non-VIPs, a lot of the species, the alien race types, are locked behind the cartel store, which is their cash shop paywall, but this is kind of to be expected, and I'm only slightly disappointed. I really wanted to play specific races for very innocent and non-strange reasons. Thank you very much. Oh yes, Star Wars music, baby. Now I know this isn't necessarily a SWTOR specific strength entirely because of course the music is from the movies, but the fact that they were able to license the John Williams music is amazing. Actually, this is a SWTOR strength in comparison to its primary rival, Lord of the Rings Online. See, Lord of the Rings Online isn't able to take the Howard Shore music from the Peter Jackson trilogy, which is a real shame now that I think of it. So yep, point to Star Wars for having one of the all-time music stores associated with this game. You get to listen to it all the time. That's awesome.
You are incredibly talented.
All right, now hey, we got this character created. All right, so obviously character creator, very immersive. I love the amount of options here, but let's get jumped right into this game. And thus, Throckmort, the Dark Side Affinity Bounty Hunter was born. Now, what Dark Side Affinity means is that I'm going to be choosing all the Dark Side options in the playthrough, which means I'm going to be about as big of an outer space douchebag as I possibly can be. Often for absolutely zero reason at all. Like, you genuinely go out of your way to be an a-hole very often in this game if you choose to go Dark Side. Like, the choices that I make me feel like I'm working through some serious childhood trauma. It makes me kind of question whether or not I'm a good person. But hey, since we're talking about the choices, let's talk about the big, wonderful elephant in the room, the story. It is incredible. If this game were football, the story would be Tom Brady with a lightsaber. It's the greatest of all time when it comes to MMO stories, in my opinion, partially because of how good the story beats are, but partially because of just how much story there is in the base game. In the base game, there are 8 individual stories that all range on a scale of good to industry leading. These stories are determined by the story experience that you choose at the beginning, and man, they are really, really good. My personal favorites are the Sith Warrior and the Sith Inquisitor storylines, but there are really great stories to experience from every single class storyline. Now, of course, here's the point where already in the comments, I'm sure people are pointing out that some of the storylines aren't all the same quality, and that's certainly true. But that's like saying that every dish from a 5-star restaurant isn't of the same quality. It's kind of splitting hairs. I mean, realistically, which would you rather have? Any of SWTOR's 8 class storylines or a retail WoW storyline? I mean, let me ask you a question. Do you know who this is? How about this? Do you know who this is? Well, they're all from this year's expansion, and I played this year's World of Warcraft expansion. I don't know who the heck these people are. I don't know what they represent, but I still remember the SWTOR storylines that I played 6 years ago. They really are that good. The point is, the story is really what you play this game for. The dialogue, the immersions, the twists and turns, while being able to control the conversations and influence the outcomes for the dark or light side in you, it's all there. And the craziest part of these 8 base game experiences that are industry leading, they're free. That's right, you can play all 8 BioWare level storylines completely for free. And the craziest thing is that the expansion storylines really aren't nearly as good as the base game storylines, and the best parts of the game are the parts that they're not asking you to pay for, which is wild. In fact, I would go out on a limb here to say that if you wanted to have the most hours of great, incredible MMO time for spending the least amount of money, if you played Final Fantasy XIV through Heavensward and then you jumped over to SWTOR and played through these 8 class experiences, you genuinely would get a ton of value for your time, and you'd never spend a dime, and you'd genuinely experience some of the best that MMOs have to offer. Now, I do have to tell you, on the quality of life here in the beginning, I appreciate the tutorials that pop up here. They're easy to use, they're intuitive, and for the new player, it won't really be hard to understand this game. But one thing that is incredibly hard to understand for me is this god-awful UI. Words can't describe how much I cannot stand the UI style of SWTOR. These little thin bars, the crowded dated buttons, I can't stand them. This may be a personal gripe, but in the world of bad UI layout, SWTOR honestly is among the worst. Now, the one thing in common with the opinion that I just shared on the UI and Disney's decision to make all Star Wars that's not theirs uncanon is that nobody really cares, because when you look at the population of this game, it is awesome. Look how many people are playing this game. For an 11-year-old game, it's absolutely wonderful to see how many people are enjoying this early game experience. This genuinely speaks to how good this game is and its storyline remains. This genuinely speaks to how good this game and its storyline remains. There are still folks jumping in to play new characters in this game, and I genuinely don't know if these people are new players or old players because this game has such amazing replayability with its story. With so many storylines to play, it's just worth it to come back and try again because each experience is new. There's even a reason to play each storyline, because if you play a class's storyline all the way through, you get a badge that goes towards an account achievement frame for your character, and you get their passive buff as you play through the other characters that you create. I genuinely cannot believe that this game is free. Seriously. Someone explain it to me. And hey, as an added bonus, best part of the game, when you press the Z button, you pull out your lightsaber or your weapon. Okay, so let's talk side quests in this game, because unsurprisingly, they're excellent. Fully voice acted, dark and light side options to determine the outcomes of these side quests, they are awesome. In fact, let me show you through one. In this quest, a dad has kidnapped a kid from the mom because she wants him to go to the Sith Academy in Korriban. And now what you might say is, in this instance, that maybe the dad had a reason to take his child away from the deranged mother. But because I'm playing a dark side bounty hunter, what's a guy to do?
I was once an acolyte at the Academy on Korriban. There's no failure at the Sith Academy. Those who can't cut it die.
Yeah, that might be a reason. That might be valid. But again, what's a dark side bounty hunter to do?
Let me take my son and flee. Tell my wife that you persuaded me and we took the shuttle to Korriban. She won't know any different.
Man, I'm gonna have to take this dad's life, I think. But what's a dark side bounty hunter to do? That's right, we're gonna kill the son's father right in front of him, leaving him emotionally traumatized for life and likely causing a zero-sum game blood feud between the boy and the bounty hunter Throckmorton. But what's a dark side bounty hunter to do? That's right, we're gonna shoot that son of a... And that's a SWTOR side quest. Tons of emotional damage for a couple of credits and dark side points. That's how it goes. Okay, so let's talk about the cash shop. When it comes to cash shops, SWTOR comes away decently clean in comparison to other 2023 MMOs. There is the regular cash shop fare here. We've got level boosts, convenience items like teleports to your ship and speed boosts, species unlocks, etc. But the star of the cash shop show here has got to be the cosmetics. Man, these are amazing. Say it with me, everybody. Monetize me, Daddy Star Wars, baby. You can be Mando? Come on, man, I want to spend money here. I will say I respect SWTOR because they don't lock all of these great cosmetics behind weird RNG-based loot boxes like some games do. Now, of course, there is also a VIP subscription here that you can purchase for the standard $15 a month, and you can remove some of the inconveniences like a cap on your credits and a standard premium currency allowance each month. But the star of the subscriber benefit has got to be the enhanced experience gains, which allow you to play through the stories at a pace without having to do side quests. You just run through the story, and the enhanced experience gains allow you to experience the whole thing without having to go off and do side quests, which is really nice for replayability. As we continue on, this is a really weird gripe, but the camera spin is way too fast. And the funny thing is, it has always been a gripe with this game. Like ever since I started playing with it, even at the lowest camera sensitivity, it's like always. As a non-technical guy, this feels like something that you could fix really, really easily, but they haven't. I mean, it's an easy fix, right? Am I overthinking this? I don't know. I just feel like this would be an easy fix. Oh, here's another great thing about this game, an easy to use outfit system. Super simple, click and you're in. Of course, you can purchase more outfit slots, but I like how easy this outfit system is to use. Another thing in this game that is great is the undeniable attention to detail. If you put on a helmet, your voice changes in the cutscenes, and I think that's really cool. And again, I just have to emphasize how active this game is right now. It's really popping with players in the beginning of the game. Now, another great thing about SWTOR is level scaling. No matter where you go, your level scales with you. It makes it a lot more rewarding to play with friends who are starting out in the game, which is a great touch. Also, I'm super thankful that they've added a lot of little and really impactful quality of life changes over the years. For me, as MMOs get older, it can often fall into just adding content just to sell more subscriptions as opposed to content that helps its current players enjoy the game more. But that's not the case here. In big quality of life changes, we have things like dual specking on steroids because you can basically be two different classes. You can be a Sith sorcerer and a juggernaut. That's wild. On a small quality of life change, we've got things like fast travel points being automatically unlocked at account creation, which just makes the game more enjoyable. Oh, okay, so let's talk about this. We got our first companion. Now, this is obviously harkening back to the Knights of the Old Republic system, but I am still a little bit undecided on if I like this or dislike this companion system in an MMORPG. These companions do tend to make the game extraordinarily easy, especially if you have your companion set to heal mode. It's just really tough to die. It does make the leveling experience feel a bit flat. I'm biased because I have been enjoying some of the more hardcore challenges of classic WoW and death equals delete in Lord of the Rings Online, though if you need a chill experience, just slapping your companion on to heal, it's just going to be an easy and chill time for you. All right, but okay, let's talk about some negatives here. Let's talk first about combat. I want to preface this by saying that again, I genuinely do love this game and so many of its elements, but the combat is just not that great in this game. The enemies feel very copy-pasted, and unless you're fighting a gold elite enemy, the combat just feels flat and unimpactful because you just feel so overpowered. If you have your companion set to healing, you can pull an entire quest's worth of enemies and mow through them with AoE and then rinse and repeat. There really isn't a lot of risk in this game when it comes to mob packs and pulling things, and until you get to very late game end game raiding, there just isn't really any risk to the combat. And I don't think this is the fault of the tab targeting system, by the way. There are tab target games that have excellent combat with high risk, like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, Lord of the Rings Online with its scaling modes. This one just falls flat in this place. Another low point for me of SWTOR is the zone design. I think that after you get through the first 2 or 3 planets, which are basically the zones of this game, you've basically seen them all just with different skins in a way. There just aren't really any zones that stand out to me after playing through this like Grizzly Hills does in World of Warcraft or Evendim in Lord of the Rings Online. If SWTOR had the traditional Knights of the Old Republic RPG character builder at the beginning of the game, the devs would have put all of its attributes into story and immersion and very few in zone design and combat, in my opinion. That being said, the attribute points that they do put into story again need to be talked about because it just continues to draw me back into this game. The depths of depravity that your character will go to or the heights to which they'll rise adds a layer of character immersion that other MMOs are rarely able to match. Now, briefly, I want to touch on endgame. It definitely has an endgame. The raids are decent and the group encounters can be really fun, but this is a bit anecdotal for me because I've never really been stuck into the game based on endgame experiences. In most MMOs, I'll have moments of endgame that keep me coming back, that stick in my mind, but not really in Star Wars: The Old Republic. Like if we take World of Warcraft, my first time downing the Lich King, or if we take Lord of the Rings Online, I distinctly remember the first time the doors opened to the Balrog's chamber at the endgame of Shadows of Angmar. I just haven't had any of those moments in SWTOR yet. In retrospect, I don't think that's very definitive. It's just a personal experience for me. Endgame is largely subjective based on the community you have, but I've just never had that glue moment, even in a pug group. And I think one of the big reasons that endgame feels a little bit flat for me has a lot to do with the storylines of the expansions. These stories are definitely subpar in comparison to the base game's excellent storytelling. I think that there are some compelling characters, but the biggest flaw in SWTOR's expansion storytelling comes from the fact that you go right from having 8 individual, incredible, beautifully fleshed out stories in the base game to having one singular mediocre story in the expansion. Regardless of how good the story is, a lot of the magic is lost in the new expansion stories compared to the base game stories. Now, one thing to mention on the state of this game is that Star Wars: The Old Republic has been moved from BioWare to one of their subsidiaries called Broadsword. Broadsword is a subsidiary of BioWare that has held a few MMOs in full maintenance mode, including Ultima Online and Dark Age of Camelot. Initially, when I heard this news, I was really nervous because it felt very premature. SWTOR has a ton of life and a lot of active player base. However, the team from BioWare did largely move over to Broadsword, and they have been very communicative about the fact that they are going to continue to create content for SWTOR, that's not going to slow down. Only time will tell, but it is a very important thing to note in this instance. And hey, I really hope they do continue to make content for this game because I love this game. I think it's incredible. But hey, let's hit this game with some rapid fire pros and cons. All right, it almost goes without saying, but obviously the story is amazing in this game. I cannot praise the story enough. It is incredible. Again, 8 different stories is insane. Not just one great story, but 8 of them. Third, fully voice-acted side quests make this game feel like it must have cost a ton of money to create, and I still can't believe that it's free to play. The class design is a ton of fun. I love a lot of these new elements of class design. They just feel great. The new quality of life features keep this game up to date, make it feel a little bit more accessible, make it feel a little bit more 2023. This game currently is popping in population. I was genuinely surprised at how many people I met in this game, and I didn't come in around like a May 4th or anything like that. This was like a random Tuesday that I was playing this, and it was really popping. Next, dynamic choices in this game make your character feel alive. You can play through the same storyline and go 2 different ways, and you'll experience 2 different storylines within one of the 8 storylines. It is very deep. The PvP system I didn't mention very much, but it is a very fun PvP system. I think it's very doable. I think it's not the best, it's not the worst, but it's really good. And of course, the last pro is that the best parts of this game are completely free. Again, it's one of the best values for money in the MMO space, and I'm blown away by it. The cons, of course, the uncertain future with the new ownership of Broadsword. It seems like things are going well, but of course there is uncertainty. Second, combat does fall a bit flat for me in this game. It just feels like you run up to the same group of enemies, you do the same thing, there's really not any risk, and it just kind of falls a bit flat. Next, zone building isn't really there in this game for me. It just feels like the same kind of thing over and over again, just with maybe some reskinning. It doesn't really feel like the zones have a lot of heart. And really, the most recent expansions, as I've played through them in the story, they just haven't really been worth it for me. I haven't been excited that I spent the money for the expansions that I did. My fellow MMOicans, let's discuss the true state of Star Wars: The Old Republic in 2023. Now, there are a number of important questions to ask when you play an MMO based in the Star Wars universe, but the most important question to ask is this: do the mechanics, the world building, the story, and the character immersion truly allow you to feel like you're living in that galaxy far, far away? The good news is that the answer to that question is a resounding yes. It absolutely does. SWTOR certainly has its faults and flaws, but those pale in comparison to how immersive and impressive the myriad of base game stories are in this game. In the storytelling alone, this game stands with single-player giants of the industry, which is incredibly impressive for an MMO. MMORPGs typically embody the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none. Combined, MMOs are a marvel, but when you take a single element of the game and examine it, you'll typically find better in a game dedicated only to that element. For example, combat in MMOs can be incredibly immersive, but you can't stack up the combat of any MMORPG to the combat of Elden Ring. Likewise, in most MMOs, the story can be really good and immersive, but if you stack it up to God of War, it's gonna fall short. However, Star Wars: The Old Republic breaks that mold with its storytelling. The storylines of the Sith Inquisitor and Juggernaut in particular would stand proudly next to some of my favorite video game stories like those of Halo, Skyrim, and God of War. Now, there are certainly flaws in this game that deserve to be addressed, mainly in its zone building and landscape combat immersion, but on the whole, the story and character immersion will always bring me back to this incredible game. Now, when talking about the state of the game, I tend to want to look at the most recent expansions, and I have, but those just don't tend to play a massive role in SWTOR's current state because their storylines just don't measure up to the storylines of the base game. The direction that they take in the game just don't really capture my heart and attention. So much to the point where even after having played through the story, I can't really tell you much about them because they just didn't capture me like the base game did. But genuinely, the most impressive thing about SWTOR is that this doesn't really matter because of how compelling the base game story and immersion is. The irony of this game is that the most impressive and compelling parts of this game are completely free. Now, like we talked about, the move to Broadsword does leave some unanswered questions for the SWTOR fanbase, namely about future content. But the Broadsword team have been forthright and overly communicative about the fact that new content will still be delivered regularly, so that's a point in the right direction for me. We'll have to see how it goes, but it's exciting when I look at it. So the state of Star Wars: The Old Republic is, in my opinion, very, very strong. There's just so much game to play here with the multiple storylines that exist, and the population is booming as a result. There are constantly folks running around having fun, the community seems to be decently friendly, and most importantly, it genuinely does transport you to a galaxy far, far away. In a way, in my humble opinion, that no other Star Wars game has even come close to. Star Wars: The Old Republic is a marvel that stands the test of time, and it's the perfect game out there for anyone who wants to visit that wonderful and elusive galaxy far, far away. Thanks for watching. Friends, I want to say thank you so very much for watching to the end of this incredibly long State of the MMO. This is a game that I really love, so I wanted to give it a ton of love in the process, but thank you so much for sticking through to the end. Like I said, if you liked this video, please like the video for me. It helps me be seen by more people. If you loved it, hit the subscribe button, and if you have some friends that play SWTOR, be sure to hit that share button and say, hey, this guy doesn't suck nearly as much as your mom does. But friends, as always, at the end of these videos, the last two things that I say are the most important thing that I could say in any video ever, and it's this, and I mean it. It's that you're more loved than you know, and you are so much more valuable than you realize. I hope you have an incredible day, and I will see you in the next one.